الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث آمنت بالله صدق الله العظيم. I will call upon Maulana Ubaid Ismail to come forward and recite Naat Sharif in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulullah.
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وسلم عليك يا حبيب الله صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وسلم عليك يا حبيب الله نگاہ لطف نبی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے عطائے پنج تنی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے عطائے پنج تنی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے نبی کے عشق میں خود کو فنا تو کر پہلے نبی کے عشق میں خود کو فنا تو کر پہلے نثار ان پہ یہ تنے ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے نثار ان پہ یہ تنے ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے بڑے نصیب سے ملتی ہے عشق کی لذت بڑے نصیب سے ملتی ہے عشق کی لذت عقیدتوں کا چمن ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، عقیدتوں کا چمن ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، زمین کرب و بلا سے یہ آ رہی ہے صدا، زمین کرب و بلا سے یہ آ رہی ہے صدا، کہ حسین ابن علی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، خود اپنے خون سے کر کے وضو سر مقتل، خود اپنے خون سے کر کے وضو سر مقتل، نماز عصر پڑھی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، نماز عصر پڑھی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، جگر کے پار ہو برچی لبوں پہ آہ نہ ہو، جگر کے پار ہو برچی لبوں پہ آہ نہ ہو، کچھ ایسے نعت پڑھی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، کچھ ایسے نعت پڑھی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، خیال فکر و نظر ذہن و دل زبان و دہن سبھی کا پاک ملن ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، سبھی کا پاک ملن ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے، عطائے پنج تنی ہو تو نعت ہوتی ہے۔ صلی اللہ علیہ یا رسول اللہ وسلم علیہ یا پراہ در پہ تیرے مثل کاہ یا زہرا ملی فقیر کو خیرات جاہ یا زہرا، ہے مرتضیٰ تیرے شوہر تو مصطفیٰ بابا زہے یہ اور جو شرف عز و جاہ یا زہرا ملی فقیر کو خیرات جاہ یا زہرا تیرے حسین کا کردار دیکھ کر اب تک تیرے حسین کا کردار دیکھ کر اب تک پکارتے ہے ملک واہ واہ یا زہرا پکارتے ہے ملک واہ واہ یا زہرا پراہوں در پہ تیرے مثل لکھا ہے یا زہرا ملی فقیر کو خیرات جاہ یا زہرا.
نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فقال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الأمين المختار الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد للہ رب العالمین. انتہائی محترم اور مکرم میرے بزرگوں، نوجوان ساتھیوں، عزت آپ میری ماؤں اور بہنوں، اپنے معمول کے مطابق آقائے نامدار، ہم سب کے تاجدار، حضور خاتم المرسلین ارواحنا فدا صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی بارگاہ میں مل کر درود پاک کا ہدیہ پیش کریں اور پڑھیں. اللہم صلی علی سیدنا و حبیبنا و شفیعنا و مولانا محمد و آلہ و صحبہ و بارک وسلم صلاة و سلاما علیک یا رسول اللہ صلی اللہ تعالی علیہ وسلم. In this gathering we have some Sadat Kiram. I would respectfully request you to come forward, as well as I can see Sheikh Ahmed. Please, if you could come forward. Jazakum. Alhamdulillah, with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once again we are in the house of Allah, remembering the best people and those who sacrificed everything for the sake of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. But before we begin, just a couple of things that came in my mind when I was listening to the Naat Sharif and Manqabat. What is Naat? Naat is the praise of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. What is Manqabat? When we praise Sahaba, when we praise the saints other than Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, when we praise any great personalities, we call it manqabat. Usually it does happen in Urdu, sometimes Arabic. Very rarely it takes place, in English language. Now the young people, the youth might be thinking, we don't understand a word of that naat. What should we do? Yes? And what's the reason why we have these naats in Urdu most of the time? Even the Salatu Salam, Mustafa Jani Rahmat pe Lakhon Salam, is in Urdu, it is not in English. somebody has tried to do some of the couplets in English. You have quite a few factors behind this. The first thing, English language is not as rich as Urdu, Farsi, and Arabic. Arabic is the richest language. Then you have Urdu, which is made out of Arabic, Persian, Sanskrit, Hindi, is also a very rich language. When you want to praise someone, when you want to use sophisticated words, it does take a lot of knowledge of that language. We had masters of Urdu who wrote Urdu poetry praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and recent one is Huzur Sayyidi Ala Hazrat Imam Ahmad Raza Khan Fazl Barelvi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Even poets and those who are not of the Sunni background, when they look at his poetry, when they look at him praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are amazed and surprised. For example, Ala Hazrat has written a naat, one naat in 4 languages. You'll find one couplet of the naat praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one couplet. How many languages? 4 languages. For example, the naat is Lam yati naziruka fi nazarin. This beginning is in Arabic. Mithl-e tu nashud paida jana. That's Persian. Jag raj ko taj tore sarso. That is their local language. And then hai tujhko shahe do sara jana. That is in Urdu. To find this richness in English so far till now is quite difficult. And therefore, the naat you usually see are in Urdu, you'll find in Persian and Arabic. English, they do have people write the naats, but when we listen to the naat and we don't understand, then what should we do? Yes, the boredom you might feel. But one thing you need to understand, when we pray Durood Sharif usually, yes, we know we are praying Durood Sharif. We're sending salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. But if we look deep, how many of us actually know the meaning of that durood? Yes, we pray Durood Sharif, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin, kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. All this Durood Sharif we pray, we know at the back of our mind that this is Durood Sharif, although we don't know the meaning. But it does give us that peace and tranquility and this understanding that I'm sending salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Likewise, when you are sitting and listening to the naat in whichever language, Arabic, Urdu, English you will understand. The rest of the languages, if you don't know, you still have to reassure and you have to make yourself understand that this is the praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and therefore we are listening to it. So this is something that I like to share with you, and there is a lot of detail to it. What is naat? As the first kalam that was being recited by Maulana Ubaid, it was beautiful. It was mixture of naat and manqabat. It was telling us that saying naat, praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the form of poetry, is not an easy subject. Very difficult subject. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to respect these great personalities, and may Allah instill the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ashabi Rasul in our hearts. Muhabbat ke saath durood pak ek martaba pad lein. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa habibina wa maulana Muhammadin ma'adinil judi wal karam wa alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim salatan wa salaman alayka ya Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayka wa sallam. Yesterday we listened to the Zikr Khair and the beautiful life of Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who is second Khalif of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. Hazrat Umar was known as Amirul Mu'mineen. Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq was known as Khalifatul Rasul. After Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the personality who was very close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and some of the virtues, individual virtues, if you look at them, Zati khususiyat, you will not find in other companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That personality is the third Khalif of Islam, Zunnurain, Sahibi Hijratain, Hazrat Sayyiduna wa Sanaduna Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. The life of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu has been always full of piety, full of taqwa, and obeying Allah and His Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. His name was Usman, his kunniyat, given name was Abdullah, and his title became Zunnurain. From Zunnurain, we are quite familiar that how Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu attained this title. It's made out of two words. One is Zu and the other one is Nurain. The meaning of Zu is possessor. If you put Zu and then Mal, Zu Mal mean the possessor of wealth, wealthy individual. If we use the same word and put Ilm, Zu Ilm, what is the meaning? Knowledgeable one. Zunnurain mean the possessor of two lights and two nur. And the scholars, they have mentioned that among the entire creation, not just Sahaba, among the entire creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there has not been any individual, any person who married to two daughters of any prophet in the entire history of mankind. Only one individual, one personality who hold this title of Zunnurain, because he married to two daughters of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, one after another, it was Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. What an amazing, honor that he hold and he possess. It's been mentioned by Abu Ya'la in his Musnad. He says, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, he stated that if I had 40 daughters, how many? 40 daughters, one after another, I would have been giving those daughters to the nikah of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. 40 daughters, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam wished that if I had these many daughters, I would have given them one after another in the nikah of Usman Zunnurain. How was his character before Islam? So he was born 6 years after the occasion of Ashab-e Fil. Why do we use the occasion of Ashab-e Fil? The reason is because I mentioned with Sayyidina Abu Bakr, with Sayyidina Umar, and with Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. Because it is very easy to remember that how old was Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and how old were the rest of the companions. 90 days after the occasion of Ashab-e Fil, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. Yes? And then Hazrat Usman Ghani was born 6 years after the occasion of Ashab-e Fil. That means he was 6 years younger than Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. Even before he accepted Islam, he was a very successful businessman. Now if we look around, that today, if a person becomes wealthy, successful businessman, he has everything that he wishes. Most of the time, not all the time, there are very good people. But majority of the time what happens, we lose our track and we leave the deen and we leave the sharia. We don't care about the rules of Islam because we have everything in our life. Yes, Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, however, even in his young age, before he became and came into the fold of Islam, he stayed away from all sorts of sins. He himself mentioned that I've never committed adultery. In my whole life, I've never committed adultery. I've never drank alcohol in my whole life. If you look at both of these, adultery and consuming alcohol, in the society then, in the Jahiliyyah, this has been a normal practice. Everyone would indulge themselves in it. It was not looked as the sin. Yes? Today our young people in secondary, and now we have heard the cases even in the normal primary schools. What are they doing? They're vaping. Vaping from the age of 10, 11. Why do they do that? In secondary schools, we have people who are using marijuana, weed, smoking weed. Why do you feel to do this? Most of the time, it is because of the group you are in. If you have 5 friends who are vaping, and you are the only one who is not, just to be part of the group, you start to do it. Peer pressure. You're part of the group, you don't want to look a different sheep from that group. You want to match with their habits. You want to match with their colors. You want to match with them so you can remain with them. Hazrat Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu had everything. And in that society, these things, adultery and drinking alcohol, was not even counted a sin. But still Hazrat Usman Ghani stayed away. Why? Because it's about your character. It doesn't matter what your friends are doing. What matters is what you are doing. You will be held accountable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your own deeds. Allah will ask you about what you did. Nobody should influence you to do something which is disliked by Allah and His Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. Hazrat Sayyidina Usman Ghani always have been a great person in terms of his character. He never committed such actions which even later in Islam became the sin. Hazrat Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Sayyidina Umar, they were very good friends, very close friends. Now this is the friendship you should be seeking in this dunya. When Hazrat Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq accepted Islam, he invited Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu to Islam. When he saw his friend chose a path of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam without any hesitation, Hazrat Usman Ghani also entered in the fold of Islam. Now, when he accepted Islam, once he came in the fold of Islam, everything that he had became the belonging of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. He never ever hesitated from giving away for the sake of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. For somebody who is an established businessman to leave his place and to move a country is a big ask. Hazrat Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the first person among Muslims to migrate from Medina to Abyssinia with his entire family. He moved from Makkatul Mukarramah to Abyssinia. Why did he move? Why did he move to Abyssinia? Because there was a good business, better than what was in Makkah? Did he move because there were more opportunities in Abyssinia, in Habsha, than Makkatul Mukarramah? No, the reason why Hazrat Sayyidina Usman Ghani moved from Makkatul Mukarramah to Abyssinia was to protect his deen and his faith. To protect his deen, he moved. So what do we learn? Even in today's day and age, if there are cases when you being in that place can shake your faith and your iman, you should move from there. You should leave that place. Why? Because there is nothing greater than your own faith and your own iman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with. When he became mu'min, when he accepted Islam, his uncle, Hakam ibn Abul As, he found out that my nephew has accepted Islam. And in today's day and age, things are different. If a father wants to say something to the child, to their own child, in this country especially, sometimes they have to think that he might go to school and complain about us. Yes? If your neighbor, who you have good connections with, they will think twice before they tell anything to your son or daughter if they are doing something wrong. Why? Because people don't want to listen. There is no control that parents should have on their children in these countries because of the laws. Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he accepted Islam, his uncle tied him in a room, locked the room, said, you will not come out until you leave Islam. If you leave Islam, you are free to go. Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu in reply said to him, and in some narration it says that even if you take my life, I will not leave the deen of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You want to take my life? Take it. I will not leave the deen of Islam. Subhanallah. Some of the ahadith which mention the virtues of Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He was from Sabiqun al-Awwalun. Sabiqun al-Awwalun, the first people, the earliest one who accepted Islam. According to some narration, it was Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Zayd ibn Harisa, and the fourth person among men who accepted Islam was Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. Imagine, we have billions of Muslims around the world now, and so many passed away. But at the beginning, the fourth person who entered in the fold of Islam is Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. Trust me, even today when people, they accepted Islam, we have seen, ask Maulana, we have seen when they take the Shahada, when we make them pray the Shahada, they start to cry. Years later, Prophet ﷺ has departed from this dunya, but still the impact of Islam is such that it touches your heart. Hazrat Usman Ghani was the fourth person who accepted Islam. Awwalul Muhajirin. Very early people who migrated. And you know, migration. If a person migrates for Islam, is something that Rasulullah ﷺ stated that when you leave your place and migrate for the sake of Allah and His Rasul ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives every single sin of your past. When you reach and you start your new life, you start your life as a new person who was born that day. That is what hijrah is. Migration is. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, not only one, he did two hijrats, two migrations. From Makkah to Abyssinia, and then from Abyssinia to Madinatul Munawwara. Two migrations he did for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is one of those people to whom Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the glad tidings of Jannah in this dunya. Imagine, we get the glad tidings of Jannah. Well, some people, they do take this quite seriously. That if I do this, I will go to Jannah. If I do that, I will go to Jannah. But if you look at the Ashab-e Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the assurance and the guarantee they had about the Jannah was the guarantee that had no doubt about it. Rasul Pak alayhi salatu wasalam on multiple occasions said to Hazrat Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that from today, whatever you do, it will not harm you. You will go to Jannah, in other words. But still Hazrat Usman Ghani's character was intact, and Hazrat Usman Ghani remained on the path of taqwa and piety the way he was before. It did not shake him. It did not move him. So we need to understand that our character should be according to the character of Ashab-e Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. Allah had given him amazing beauty. Ibn Asakir, he mentions one riwayat And listen to this. Hazrat Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Who is Hazrat Usama ibn Zayd? Hazrat Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was a young lad who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he was serving to Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam for a long time. His father one day, Hazrat Zayd comes looking for him. He come to know that Usama is with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he lives there and he serves to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came to Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam and he said, "Send Usama with me. I want to take him." Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam said, "It's his wish. If he wants to go, you can take him." Now Hazrat Zayd said to Usama, his son, that let's go, come with me. Hazrat Usama refused to go with him. He said, "I cannot leave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would like to live with Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam." Because that was the character of Rasulullah. That was the attraction that Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam had. Those who served to Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam, they say that we served to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for years, but during those years, not once Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam said why you did this and why you didn't do this. Prophet never asked or demanded things. They used to be with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as it was an honor for them. So that Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that Ba'asani Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ila manzili Usman bi sahfatin fiha lahmun. Rasulullah sent me to the house of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu with a bowl that had meat in it. فَدَخَلْتُ, I entered. فَإِذَا رُقِيَّةُ جَالِسَةٌ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beloved daughter, Sayyida Ruqayya radiyallahu ta'ala anha. She was the first daughter who Rasulullah got her married to, Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. What was her name? Ruqayya. We should know the names of the daughters as well as the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. The way we know the names of footballers, your favorite team, you'll know everything about them. You'll be very up to date with the knowledge about what's happening with them, the background, everything. Islam is our religion. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam is our prophet. To know about him is our duty. When he reached, he says, Sayyidah Ruqayya was sitting. فَجَعَلْتُ مَرَّةً أَنظُرُ إِلَى وَجْهِ رُقَيَّةَ وَمَرَّةً إِلَى وَجْهِ Usman. Once I would look at the blessed face of Hazrat Ruqayya, and then I would look at the blessed face of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. I was looking at them. فَلَمَّا رَجَعْتُ, when I returned to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet asked me. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked me, دَخَلْتَ عَلَيْهِمَا? Did you enter upon them? قُلْتُ نَعْمَ. I said, yes. I went and I visited them. قَالَ فَهَلْ رَأَيْتَ زَوْجًا أَحْسَنَ مِنْهُمَا? Prophet asked again, have you seen any couple who is more beautiful than Usman and Ruqayya? Allahu Akbar. Usama says then, قُلْتُ لَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Ya Rasulullah, I haven't seen any couple who is more beautiful than Hazrat Usman Ghani and Sayyida Ruqayya radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam chose Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu for his two daughters, one after another. Khatib Baghdadi, he has quoted a hadith from Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala. And he narrates from Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha that Rasul Akram alayhi salatu wasalam, he stated once to Sayyidah Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha that how does nikah of the daughters of Rasulullah take place? We look for the rishta for our children and we fix them. Good rishta, fix them. When it comes to the daughters of Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the system is different. Rasul Pak alayhi salatu wasalam, he is stating here, Inna Allah ta'ala awha ilayya an uzawwija karimatayya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to me, send wahi to me, that I do nikah of my karimatayya, both of my daughters. He was pointing at Sayyida Ruqayya and Sayyida Kulsum radiyallahu ta'ala anha min Usman. I do their nikah to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Which mean on both occasions when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did nikah of first Hazrat Ruqayya radiyallahu ta'ala anha to Hazrat Usman Ghani, and then when she passed away, he did nikah of Hazrat Kulsum to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anha. On both occasions it was because of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah commanded Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam to do the nikah of both of his daughter to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala an. In another hadith, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam stated, Usman ibn Affan waliyi fi dunya wa waliyi fil akhirah. Usman ibn Affan is my wali in dunya and in the hereafter. What is the meaning of wali here? My friend in this dunya and in the hereafter. In another hadith, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam stated from Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala, لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ خَلِيلٌ فِي أُمَّتِهِ. For every Nabi there is a Khalil. Khalil means very close friend. In simple language, if you say a buddy that you always need, that you always go to, that you always talk to, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam stated that for every Nabi there is a Khalil in their ummati. Wa inna Khalili Usman ibn Affan, and my Khalil and my very close friend is Usman ibn Affan. لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ رَفِيقٌ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. Another hadith says, every Nabi has a Rafiq, somebody who will be with them in Jannah. وَالرَّفِيقِ فِيهَا Usman, and my Rafiq in Jannah is Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Subhanallah. One beautiful hadith which I came across first time, and maybe you will listen to this hadith first time as well. Hazrat Ibn Asakir, he has quoted this hadith from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And he says, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam stated, لَيَدْخُلَنَّ بِالشَّفَاعَةِ Usman سَبْعُونَ أَلْفًا. With the intercession of Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, سَبْعُونَ أَلْفًا, 70,000 will enter in Jannah. And what kind of 70,000 people would be these? قَدْ اسْتَوْجَبُ النَّارِ, the Jahannam would be wajib on them. But Hazrat Usman Ghani will intercede and he will do shafa'at for them, and those 70,000 will enter in Jannah بِغَيْرِ hisab, without any accountability, without any questioning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What a great maqam, what a great personality Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu possess. In his life, if you look at his achievements, and these achievements we are talking about in terms of his own for the hereafter. So if you look at Jaysh-e-Usra, now Jaysh-e-Usra is Jang-e-Tabuk, and we have listened to this hadith multiple times and numerous times. Many of us, we memorize this hadith-e-Pak of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But why do we repeat this? Because each time we hear this hadith, it reminds us of the generosity of Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. It gives us this assurance that when you spend for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in today's day and age, Allah will reward you much more than what you have given in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, Jaysh-e-Usra, why is it called Jaysh-e-Usra? Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam was preparing for a battle, and that battle is known as Battle of Tabuk. How far is Tabuk? From Madinatul Munawwara, Tabuk is approximately 425 miles. 425 miles. By car, it takes around 6.5 hours drive. How were they going to go, the companion? They were going to go on their horses and camels, and many by walk on their feet. How many miles? 425 approximately. This was the courage And this was the jazba that Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, he filled in the hearts of companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The problem we have today is that it becomes very difficult for us to make it to masjid for salah. Unless there are occasions, then we'll fill the masjid. When it comes to 5 daily salah, we would be at home sitting. We would be at home doing not so important things. But it becomes hard and difficult for us to leave our comfort and come in the masjid for salah. These companions, they used to leave their house just to fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 500 miles distance. Traveling, going for months and then fighting and coming back. That was the courage they had. And that is why Islam reached to us the way we see it now and the way we see it in today's day and age. So at the time of Battle of Tabuk, Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam was encouraging people. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he kept giving these many camels, these many dinar. He kept giving. The hadith gives the number. And finally he reached to 700 camels fully loaded for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many? 700 camels. And remember, at that time, camels used to be a precious possession, an asset for the people of Arab. It used to be very useful for them in their day-to-day life and in their business. He gave 700 fully loaded camels. Then Mullah Ali Qari rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, he mentions in his Sharh of Mishkat that Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, to complete the 700 and take it to the 1,000, what did he give? He gave the horses to complete that number, and all of them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw the generosity of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, what did he say? He said that from today, anything Usman does will not harm him. I mean, any of the act. In other words, even if it's the act of guna, if Usman does it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not punish him. This was the guarantee of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet knew that looking at the character of Usman, looking at the way he lives, Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu is an amazing person who will not go close to any kind of sins. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu with. Now, many battles took place. What was the importance of the Battle of Tabuk in the life of Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wassalam? First battle, Battle of Badr, when it took place, there were about 313 Muslims. Then comes the Battle of Uhud. In Battle of Uhud, there were about 700 Muslims. Then comes Hudaybiyah, when Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam traveled, and we'll listen about Hudaybiyah, 1500 Muslims. Then comes Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, when he came in Makkah as a conqueror, as a victorious person, there were 10,000 Muslims. But when people went to Tabuk, the Shaykh Muhaddis Dahelwi rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, he mentioned that there were approximately 42,000 Sahaba that took part in the Battle of Tabuk. A huge army of Muslims took part in this great battle. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was part of that, and not only part of that, he donated so much for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was injured, as we heard yesterday. Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he appointed 6 Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And those 6 Sahaba, they were among the most senior Ashabi Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. As somebody came to Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab, and they said, Umar, after you, would you appoint your son, Abdullah ibn Umar, to be the Khalifa of Islam? Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was very upset about this suggestion and this question. In today's day and age, what we see, हम आजकल ये देखते हैं कि अगर कोई पीर है तो उसका बेटा ऑटोमेटिकली पीर हो जाता है. कोई उसकी काबिलियत, इल्मी मकाम, उसके तहारत और तकवा, उसका कोई सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता है. अगर बाप पीर है तो वो खुद पीर हो जाता है. क्यों? भाई बेटा तो वही है, दूसरा कैसे बन सकता है? Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala was approached by people that after you, would you make your son Abdullah your Khalifa? Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala said, no. There are 6 people, I know about them, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left this world, Prophet was extremely happy with these six people. People will have to choose from these 6. One of them could be the Khalifa, and one of them could be Amirul Mu'mineen. Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he showed us the path that when you choose someone to lead you, when you choose someone to be your leader, they have to have that ability in them. They have to have something that people know he will fulfill that task. If they have no ability, you cannot give them that title and responsibility just because of their relations. No, Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab, he gave the name of these 6 people. Hazrat Usman Ghani, Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Talha, Hazrat Zubair, Hazrat Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and Hazrat Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Now these people were the 6. Among them, one of them had to be the Khalifa. And this is the normal process of a Khalifa being chosen. Should be chosen by a committee of Muslims and senior Ashabi Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were them. They got together, and among these 6, 3 of Ashabi Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so Hazrat Talha, Hazrat Zubair, and Hazrat Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, they took their name back, and they said, we will be backing these 3 companions. One, Hazrat Usman, Hazrat Ali, and then Hazrat Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Because Abdurrahman ibn Auf was one of the most senior ones. So he took this task to choose one of the companions. He went to many other people. Individually, he went to companions asking for their advice. And finally, after talking to other companions, he took the hand of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he announced that I do bay'ah on the hand of Usman according to the sunnah of Rasulullah, sunnah of the 2 Khulafa, Hazrat Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu became the Khalifa. Many people, they argue about this process. And they say that Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu should have been the Khalifa without any question. Now, Hazrat Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, there is a narration that's been mentioned in the books of Ahadith that I spoke to Hazrat Ali and I spoke to Hazrat Usman Ghani, both of them. When I went to Sayyidina Ali, I asked Sayyidina Ali that if I take bay'ah on your hand and announce you as the Khalifa of Muslimin, would you be happy with that? Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, according to the narration, says that Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, no, I would not want to. And then he went to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala and said the same thing. And he says that Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu agreed that if he takes the bay'ah on the hands of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and announces about Hazrat Usman Ghani being Khalifatul Rasul, he'll be happy with that. And therefore, Hazrat Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he announced the Khilafat of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Now, coming to the Khilafat of Sayyidina Usman, Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu led the Ummah for 12 years. Longer than Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu's time period. And according to majority of the historians and those who wrote the seerah of Hazrat Usman Ghani, they say that most of the period of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala, it was amazing. The victories that took place in the time of Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they continued in the time of Hazrat Usman Ghani too. And they went to far and wide. For example, Cyprus, if you have visited. In the time of Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, he went and requested to Hazrat Umar that give me permission that I use the way of sea and attack Cyprus, and that would be victory of Muslims. But this path was new. To be used to attack any other place, it was a dangerous one. Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not give permission. He said, no, I cannot put the lives of Muslims in danger because we don't know. This is a new path. But in the time of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he did use the way of sea, attacked Cyprus, and it was conquered by Muslims. The expansion of Masjid al-Haram as well as Masjid al-Nabawi, it took place in the time of Hazrat Usman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala. And the beauty is, Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala, if we look at his life, he loved to adorn the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He loved to look after the house of Allah Azza wa Jal. So what did he do which wasn't in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? In Masjid Nabawi, he made beautiful pillars, and those pillars had design on them. He also used a very expensive wood to make the ceiling of Masjid Nabawi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of this took place in Hijri 26. But then we know that the ahadith of Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, they mention quite a lot about Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu and how would his last days of his life would be. In one of the hadiths, it's been mentioned that one day Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam was sitting and he was talking about the fitna near the Qiyamah, or fitna towards the end. Among those fitna, he said that when these fitna will occur, when these calamities will come, this person would be on the right path, pointing at somebody who was covered in the cloak. Now the Sahabi who is narrating this, he says that, I checked that who is this person? Who is this person? He said it was Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. He said, this person, during those fitna, it will be alal huda, on the guidance. Hada yawma idin alal huda. This person on those days of fitna will be on the right path and on the guidance. Which means, in the time of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, those fitnas had to occur. If you look at Islamic history and the shahadat of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, it tells you, and even the companions after the martyrdom of Hazrat Usman, they said that this was the first fitna and first calamity that struck the Muslim ummah. So first 10 years, according to most of the historians, were great. All the victories were in place. Muslims were prosperous. People were at ease. People were looking after each other. And Islam was expanding. The land of Muslims were expanding too. But then, within Muslims, a fitna started. This started from Egypt. Sayyiduna Usman ibn Affan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had appointed a governor in Egypt. Now some of the complaint came about that governor to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. A letter of complaint came to him. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala, he read the letter and he wrote some instructions to the governor in reply to the letter that came. When that letter reached to Egypt, to the governor, that governor killed the messenger. Now, this again created more disaster and fitna, and therefore a group of people from Egypt came to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala, and they had one request. They came to Hazrat Usman Ghani and their request was that this governor should be replaced. We do not want him anymore, he should be replaced. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala, after the discussion with them, he said, you choose who you want to be the governor of Egypt. They chose Hazrat Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr. Who is Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr? Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr is son of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala. They chose Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr to be their governor. Hazrat Usman Ghani officially gave him the letter to be the governor of Egypt. When he reached to Egypt, the current governor has to leave his post and Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr will take his post. Now, whilst they were going and they were on their way to Egypt, they found a Habashi servant going very fast on a camel as if there was something for him to hide. He wanted to hide something. They captured him, and when they checked, he was carrying a letter with him, official letter. Now, when they opened the letter, the official letter, in that letter it was written that these people who came from Egypt, they are coming to you, addressing to the current governor, they are coming to you with Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr. As soon as they come to you, you kill them and kill Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr too. At the end of the letter, they used to use the seal, muhar, is called stamp. It was the official stamp which Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala used to use. Now when they found this letter, they brought the letter as well as the messenger to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. They were in Medina now. All of these people, they surrounded the house of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala because they thought that this letter is officially from Hazrat Usman Ghani and it commands the killing of all those who came as well as the new governor Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr. They surrounded the house of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. They demanded one thing, the clarity about this, and some of them they also went to Hazrat Sayyiduna Ali, the senior Sahaba at the time. When they went to Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala, Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala came to Hazrat Usman Ghani and asked him about this letter. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala took the oath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, took the qasam of Allah, and he said, by Allah, the letter is mine, letterhead is mine, the stamp is mine, but the writing is not mine. It's been used by someone, no one knows. Now with Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one of his relatives who was known as Marwan used to live, he used to help him. People, they realized that if it's not Usman Ghani, then it is Marwan, because Marwan was related to the current governor. When the current governor, he had to go, Marwan did not like, and he plotted this, according to some. Now they asked Hazrat Usman Ghani to give Marwan to them. That Marwan should be given to us. We will treat him the way we want because he is the one who created this fitna. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he insisted that there is no proven evidence that Marwan is the one who did this. As Amirul Mu'mineen, I cannot apprehend anyone who is not guilty to you. Because if you kill him, then the sin goes to who? Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. And this point became critical in the last days of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Those people who claimed to be Muslims, those who claimed to pray the kalima of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were now wanting Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu's life. They were there, surrounded the entire vicinity where Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala was. They stopped any food going in. They stopped any water going in the house of Hazrat Usman Ghani. Now, some Sahaba, they came to Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. Because you could imagine, Amirul Mu'mineen's house in Madinatul Munawwara has been surrounded. The same Amirul Mu'mineen who has the army, who has hundreds and thousands of people waiting for his command to kill anyone he wants. Now his house has been surrounded. Enemies are at his door. Food cannot go in. How could this be possible whilst hundreds of Sahaba were there? The reason was when Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they went to speak to Hazrat Usman Ghani. And they said, just give us one command. It will take few moments to remove all of these and end their lives right now. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala said that this is the city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The sanctity of Medina is such that I cannot have anyone's blood in the streets of Medina. I do not want a single person's blood in the streets of Madinatul Munawwara. That was the only reason Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not command any of his army person to do any sort of activity. And he also knew the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith which Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrated that Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, he stated that Ya Usman, innahu la'allallaha yaqmisuka qamisan, that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you wear a garment. Soon Allah will make you wear a garment. Then some people, they will try to pull that garment from you. Do not let them do that. La takhla'ahu, do not remove that garment. Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam was pointing at which garment? He was pointing at the khilafat. That Allah will give you the khilafat, the leadership of Muslims and the believers. And there will be time, you will be tested. There will be time when people will want to remove this khilafat from you. Do not back down. This is your right and you should stand there. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not listen to them. He did not apprehend Marwan to them. This became the reason for Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala shahada. When they stopped the water, and Hazrat Usman Ghani was with some of his servant and with his blessed wife Sayyidina Naila radiallahu ta'ala anha. At some point, he came on one of his balconies and he addressed people, those who had surrounded his house. And he reminded them of what he did in the past for Muslims. He said to them that, am I not the Usman that when Rasul Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, he announced about buying Bir Ruma and donating that beer and that well for Muslims, was I not the one who did that? Was I not the one who purchased that beer, that well of Roma, and gave it to Muslims to be used? They accepted that yes, it is you. Then Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala said that, am I not the one that in the time of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, Masjid Nabawi was, not enough for Muslims. The space was not enough. Was I not the one who purchased the land and the extension of Masjid Nabawi took place? He was reminding them of those deeds that he did for the sake of Allah and His Rasul and for the sake of Muslims. But these people had other intentions. They were not the one who had heart to process and mind to understand. When they saw that at the gate of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, there are companions. Hazrat Sayyidina Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Hazrat Sayyidina Imaam Husain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they are protecting the gate, and those of Hazrat Usman Ghani, they cannot enter from that way. So they climbed from the balcony, they entered in the house of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And to begin with, Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, in some narrations, it says he held the beard of Hazrat Usman Ghani, son of Sahabi. But sometimes mind can take you somewhere else. Your thoughts can take you somewhere else. When he held the beard of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala, Hazrat Usman Ghani said to him, what if your father sees you in this state? What if your father sees you holding my beard? He came to his senses. He jumped and he left Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. But then with him, there were a few people who attacked Hazrat Usman Ghani on his head, on his face, on his shoulders, and Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he fell on the ground, he was bleeding. When this happened, he had just finished performing his salah and he was reading the Holy Quran. And Mu'arrikhun, they say that when he was praying Quran and the blood came on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it fell on فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ Allah is sufficient for them. فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ Allah is sufficient for them. Hazrat Naila, his wife radiallahu ta'ala anha, she tried to intervene. She tried to hold the sword of the enemies, in which she also lost her 2 fingers. By the time she went up and made the announcement that Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu has been attacked, people came in. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu had departed from this dunya. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Now Sahaba say that this fitna, which started by the martyrdom of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, it was the fitna that will never end. The fitna that started then, it will remain until the day of Qiyamah. They said, we have never seen such calamity and difficulty for Muslims ever before that happened after the martyrdom of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. An example of that, the battle which is known as Jang-e Jamal, between Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala anha's follower and Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu's followers. What was the reason? And this is part of the history. How do we listen to it and how do we process it? We do not accuse any of the group, and we do not judge any of them. Why? Because they were the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On one side, it was the wife of Sayyidina Rasulullah, Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa, and those who followed her. On the other hand, it was Damad-e Rasul, Hazrat Sayyiduna Mawla-e Kainat, Ali Sher-e Khuda, Mushkil Kusha radiyallahu ta'ala. It was the history that took place. There must be wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did that take place? Because Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa and those companions, they wanted to take the revenge of the shahadat of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Hazrat Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu did not. And there was a reason. Because until today, it is not clear that who was the exact person that killed and martyred Hazrat Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala. People asked that Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, you were there. Did you kill Hazrat Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala? And he said that the last time when I was near him was when he reminded me of my father. I haven't been closer to him. I came to my senses then. So we don't know. And therefore, Hazrat Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu refused. Why Sayyida Aisha and the companions demanded? for the revenge, because this event wasn't something which can be taken lightly. The shahadat of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu wasn't something that can be just seen and let go. It was a painful history of Islam that those who claim to be Muslims and those who claim to be the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they killed Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. So Sayyidina Usman Ghani, a great Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, he departed from this dunya after 12 years of his Khilafat. And some of the great time in his Khilafat, the companions say that when Africa and areas were conquered in his time, and the war booty that came, it was in so much in terms of numbers that every single fighter, every single army person, they received 3,000 dinars, 3,000 golden coins in the time of Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The last number of army which I mentioned in the time of Rasulullah in Jang Tabuk, and that was the last battle that Prophet ﷺ physically took part in. In that army, there were approximately 44,000 companions who took part. So we can imagine then Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, the expansion of army, then Sayyidina Umar, and then Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, how huge the Muslim army would be. Each of them, they received 3,000 golden coins when Africa was conquered. So Muslims, they saw great days in the time of Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But this fitna had to happen. It was the test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined for his great Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's companion, and people saw that. When Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was about to depart from this dunya, one sentence that he said in front of those people, and his last words, he said to them after reminding them, according to this narration, that he reminded them of the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ when Prophet ﷺ was on Mount Uhud and he started shaking. And with Rasulullah ﷺ, there was Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, there was Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Prophet ﷺ addressing to Mount Uhud, because he was the Prophet. He wasn't only the Prophet of people, mankind and human. He was the Prophet of every single creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether they spoke or not, whether they had life or not, they understood Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam addressed to Mount Uhud and said, Uhud, stop, don't you know upon you is one Siddiq and two Shuhada. One of them was Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So Prophet pre-told about the martyrdom of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. So he said, he reminded this hadith to them, and then he said, Allahu Akbar, Ushhidu bi Rabbil Kaaba inni shaheed. Allahu Akbar, Allah is the great. O people, be witness with the qasam of Rabbi Kaaba, inni shaheed, indeed I am the one who is martyred and who is shaheed. I am the shaheed one. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala, who departed from this dunya with such great pain and these manners. But this is the way of Sahabi. There was no complaint on his tongue. There was no words of sorrow and pain on his tongue. What he stood on his ground. He stood what was the right. He stood for what was the right. He stood for the protection of Islam, because if he had commanded, the blood would be in the streets of Medina. One of the great act of Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that gathering and collection of the Holy Quran, it had started in the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. We love Quran. We love the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When anywhere around the world, anyone tries to talk ill or to act on any evil intentions we feel the pain and we react to it. But we should also know that how much work it went behind collecting the Holy Quran. So in the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they had already started collecting the Holy Quran. The reason was in Jang-e Yamama. Jang-e Yamama was the battle when Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he sent an army to end Musailma bin Kadhab, who claimed to be the prophet of Allah, ma'azallah. And in that army, approximately 1,500 Sahaba who were Huffaz, they were martyred. 1,500 Huffaz Sahaba. According to some, there is a huge number. After the battle, when Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he realized that Huffaz are the greatest way of protection of the Holy Quran, preservation of the Holy Quran, then he commanded for the collection of the Holy Quran. But then, one thing we have to remember, that as victories took place, Islam is spread far and wide. Not everyone were Arab, not everyone understood Arabic, not everybody spoke the language that Quraysh they spoke. Therefore, by the time of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, there were many ways that people used to read Quran. Every tribe, every place, every country used to read Quran according to their ways. And he understood the need that if this continues, in the future, there'll be so many different copies of Quran. Everyone will read Quran according to their tribal language, according to how they pronounce, according to how the Arabat would be. They will pronounce, because again, there were no Arabs then, no Zabar Zair Pesh then. So you had hundreds of different ways of people reading Quran according to their own understanding. Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he called off all the copies of Quran that existed then. And then he made a commission of Sahaba, a committee of companions who were Huffaz. And he started to collect the Quran according to the way it was revealed on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to the pronunciations of Quraysh, and he gathered the entire Quran using that committee of companions that each time they used to write one verse, there would be two witnesses who were Huffaz, who were Sahaba, who were appointed by Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu to verify that ayah, that this is the ayah, it is according to the way of Quraysh, the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's how the entire Quran was collected. The Quran you see now, the Quran you read and recite, it is according to how Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu collected, and then he published. Then he sent the copies, hundreds of copies of Quran around the world, around the Islamic kingdom. And this is one of the greatest ihsan, greatest favor of Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu upon the ummah, among many other favors that he has done upon the ummah before being Khalifa, after his Khilafat, and by giving his precious life for the sake of Allah and his Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. There are many more things to talk about these companions, but inshallah we'll continue until we live in this dunya. Our duty is to remember them. Our duty is to talk about them. Our duty is to learn from their lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you and I the ability to love these companions and respect them, and love Ahlul Bayt and respect them. Allah ta'ala हम सबका यहाँ जमा होना कबूल फरमाए. सलातो सलाम के लिए खड़े हो जाएं.
मुस्तफा जाने रहमत पे लाखों सलाम शम्ए बज़ में हिदायत पे लाखों सलाम शहरे यारे ایرم تاجدار حرم نوبہار شفاعت پہ لاکھوں سلام مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام شمع ہدایت پہ لاکھوں سلام زاہد مسجد احمدی پر درود دولت جیش عسرت پہ لاکھوں سلام در منثور قرآن کی سل کے بہی زوج دو نور عفت پہ لاکھوں سلام یعنی عثمان صاحب قمیص خدا یعنی عثمان صاحب قمیص خدا اللہ پوشے شہادت پہ لاکھوں سلام مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام شمع بز میں ہدایت پہ لاکھوں کاش محشر میں جب ان کی آمد ہو اور بھیجے سب ان کی شوقت پہ لاکھوں سلام مجھ سے خدمت کے قدسی کہے گا رضا مجھ سے خدمت کے قدسی کہے رضا مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام شمع پز میں ہدایت پہ لاکھوں سلام
اللہم صلی وسلم بارک علی سیدنا و حبیبنا و مولانا محمد و آلہ و صحبہ و بارک وسلم صلاة و سلام علیک یا سیدی یا حبیبی یا طبیبی یا رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. مولا کریم ہم تمام کی آج کی اس حاضری کو اس محفل مبارک میں قبول فرما. جو بھی ذکر خیر ہوا ان تمام کو اپنی بارگاہ میں قبول فرما. صلاۃ و سلام کا نذرانہ پیش کیا گیا قبول فرما. ان تمام کا ثواب سب سے پہلے رسول کریم رؤوف الرحیم ہم سب کے آقا و مولا حضور خاتم المرسلین رحمت للعالمین کی مقدس بارگاہ میں نذر کرتے ہیں قبول فرما. یا رسول کے وسیلے سے جملہ انبیاء کرام و رسولان اعظام حضور اکرم علیہ الصلوۃ والسلام کے والدین کریمین حضور کے تمام صاحبزادے تمام صاحبزادیاں ازواج مطہرات اہل بیت کرام خاصتاً حضرت سیدہ کائنات خاتون جنت رضی اللہ تعالی عنہا حضرات حسن کریمین رضی اللہ تعالی عنہما و خصوصاً بالخصوص حضرت سیدنا عثمان غنی رضی اللہ تعالیٰ عنہ کی روح پرفتوح کو ایصال کرتے ہیں قبول فرما. مولا کریم جملہ صحابہ خاصتاً عشر مبشرہ کی ارواح طیبات کی بارگاہوں میں پیش کرتے ہیں قبول فرما. پھر خاصتاً سید الشہداء سیدنا امام حسین اور ان کے جملہ رفقاء اور اصحاب کرام کی بارگاہوں میں ہدیتاً و تحفتاً پیش کرتے ہیں قبول فرما. مولا کریم حضور کے تمام صحابیات تابعین طب تابعین تابعات طب تابعات ائمہ مجتہدین اولیاء کاملین کی ارواحوں کو پیش کرتے ہیں قبول فرما. مولا کریم خصوصاً بالخصوص پیر میر میرا سیدنا و سندنا شیخ عبد القادر جیلانی شہباز اعلی مکانی حضرت داتا گنج بخش علی حجویری حضرت خواجہ معین الدین چشتی حسن سنجری اور جملہ سلاسل عالیہ کے بزرگان دین کی ارواح کو ایصال کرتے ہیں قبول فرما. مولا کریم ان تمام کے فیوز و برکات سے حاضرین حاضرات سامعین اور سامعات کو مالا مال فرما. پھر ان تمام کے وسیلے سے جتنے حاضرین ہیں جتنے سامعین سامعات حاضرات ہیں مولا کریم ان تمام کے مرحومین مؤمنین کی ارواح کو ایصال کرتے ہیں قبول فرما۔ حضرت علامہ شاہد رضا نعیمی رحمۃ اللہ تعالی علیہ کی روح کو ایصال کرتے ہیں قبول فرما، ان کے درجات کو بلند فرما۔ مولا کریم ہم تمام کے مرحومین کی اپنے کرم سے بے حساب مغفرت فرما، شہدائے کرب و بلا کے صدقے میں ان کی برزخ کی زندگیوں کو آسان فرما۔ مولا کریم جتنے بیمار ہیں سب کو اپنے کرم سے شفا عطا فرما، خاص طور پہ ہمارے حفیظ بھائی ہاسپٹل میں ہیں، مولا کریم ان کو شفا کاملہ و عاجلہ عطا فرما، اپنے کرم سے انہیں تندرستی عطا فرما۔ بہت سے ہمارے بھائی بہن دعاؤں کی درخواست کرتے ہیں، تو علیم و خبیر ہیں، ان تمام کے جائز مقاصد کو اپنے کرم خاص سے پورا فرما۔ شہدائے کرب و بلا کے صدقے میں مولا کریم تمام کی تکالیف کو دور فرما، مشکلات کو آسان فرما، بیماریوں سے نجات عطا فرما، صحت و سلامتی عطا فرما۔ مسجد کی خدمت کرنے والوں کو مولا کریم دونوں جہان کی بھلائیاں اور برکتیں عطا فرما۔ جتنی بہنیں جتنے ہمارے بھائی مسجد کا تعاون دام درم قدم سخن اپنا وقت دے کر کرتے ہیں، مولا کریم ان تمام کو دونوں جہان کی بھلائیاں اور برکتیں عطا فرما۔ مسجد کو جو آباد رکھتے ہیں مولا کریم ان کے گھروں کو آباد رکھ۔ مولا کریم ہم تمام کی اولاد کو نیک اور صالح بنا، حضرات حسن کریمین کے صدقے میں ان کو اپنے والدین کا مطیع اور فرما بردار بنا۔ جو بچے راہ حق سے گم ہو گئے مولا کریم ان تمام کو صحیح راستہ عطا فرما، ان تمام کو اپنے والدین کا مؤدب اور والدین کی خدمت کرنے کی توفیق عطا فرما۔ جو بھی اولاد ہیں مولا کریم ان ایام خاص کے صدقے میں، ان عظیم ہستیوں کے صدقے میں، خاصتاً حضرت حسنین کریمین کے صدقے میں انہیں نیک اور صالح اولاد عطا فرما۔ جو رشتوں کے متلاشی ہیں، بہت سے والدین اپنے بچوں کے رشتوں کی تلاش میں ہیں، مولا کریم ان تمام کو اپنے فضل و کرم سے محرم الحرام کے ان ایام خاص کے صدقے میں نیک صالح رشتے عطا فرما، ان تمام کی خواہشات کو اپنے فضل و کرم سے پورا فرما۔ مولا کریم جو رزق کی تلاش میں ہیں ان کو رزق حلال عطا فرما، جو رزق سے لگے ہوئے ہیں یا اللہ اپنے کرم سے ان کے رزق حلال میں وسعتیں اور برکتیں عطا فرما۔ ہم تمام کو حلال کھانے، حلال کھلانے اور حلال کمانے کی توفیق عطا فرما۔ ہم تمام کے دلوں کو اپنی طرف پھیر دے، ہم تمام کے دلوں میں تیری اور تیرے پیارے رسول کریم علیہ الصلاۃ والسلام کی محبت ہمیشہ ہمیشہ کے لیے قائم و دائم فرما۔ صحابہ کرام کی بارگاہوں کا خادم، اہل بیت اطہار کی بارگاہوں کا مؤدب اور ان تمام سے محبت کرنے والا بنا۔ صلی اللہ تعالی علی خیر خلقہ ونور عرشہ محمد وآلہ وصحبہ اجمعین برحمتک یا ارحم الراحمین۔ Once again, I would like to thank every brother, the younger ones, the older ones, all the sisters who have participated today. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala bless you all in this dunya and in the hereafter. And we will like to see you every day, inshallah. Jazakallah.